I monitor how I'm living my life by what I call life profile for the last 20 years. And there, first and most important thing I measure is if I have been living truthfully. I'll say it differently. Can I be sincere and truthful? That's the basic idea I try to capture and practice. And I realized that's just my mind talking. And I think the person in India, Guru Sadhu Guru, I think was his name, was saying whatever happens in the mind is just the processing of the data gathered in the past in a different order. And I think that's very true, that the words are just symbols, and if you just gather this way or that way, it may be just seen as just a rumble, and often we do that. But still, being sincere and truthful may help those rumble, the words that we may, use, and I think we use in the frontal lobe of our brain, so that we can make a good judgment to live our life. So ideally, the words that we assemble is representing the wisdom or compassion, and for that reason, we can use this tool, the words, in a way that may help us to live. So the work I have been doing for the software development of this company has led me to study lots of references so that we can capture the essence of those teachings so that we can learn, be inspired to live better and healthy in our mind and body, as well as to live a life sincerely and truthfully. There are a few sentences I picked up that I think capture a very interesting point. So one of them is, I want to share a few of them. One of them is from the Tao Te Ching. It says something like, can you deal with the most vital matters by letting events take their course? Which is basically acceptance. And Taoism, that in China they have this guy, Lao Tzu, shared, has this notion of wu wei, no action. So on appearance, that looks like a very passive way of living. Anyway, whether that thinking of Tao and how we practice can be benefiting us or not, that's all of us to observe and find. But this sentence is one of the ones that I thought is meaningful so that we can think about the depth of that thinking. Can we let the events take course on our own? Meaning that we are not psychologically upset about whatever the event takes place, but calm and quiet. The other thing I picked up from the study of the Bibles and so forth in the last few weeks was from the Bible's Proverb, which says, when people draw favor from the Lord, even their enemies are at peace with them. In case of our conflict, which is like a battle between two egos, the point of the resolution, I guess that's where it comes down to it, is based upon, if I understand this proverb well, that if we can follow the Lord approach, which to me is like a law of nature, or the same as the Taoism talk about the Tao, the law. So if we follow that, even the enemies are at peace with them, meaning that there's some fundamental principle of life or the universe, so that we can be sincere and truthful to go along with it, which basically says thy will be done, and not putting our thought ahead of anything, then we have a peace in what we do. I think that's very profound, and I think that connect to some of the fundamental findings that I found from my study in Zen and practicing meditation, and coming to the point that the famous saying from the Greek philosopher is know thyself. And if you get to know about yourself deeper and deeper and deeper, and the other part of the puzzle is thy will be done. So those two dies, know thyself, about yourself, knowing what you do and why and all of that to the depth of it, and thy will be done. In that thy, meaning the God or the law of nature as I take it, and that's the manifestation of all there is in what we have. So it's an absolute fact of life from moment to moment. The other, studying yourself, know thyself, is from the point of the mind to go deeper into your consciousness. And those two matches together so that we have a way. So whether it's Taoism or Greek mythology, philosophy, or Christ in the Proverb expression, and many others seem to point the same. And I mentioned in my book, Results from the Heart, the same point, which I got the forward from Dalai Lama to the point of him repeating what I said, that we can use your brain, but at the same time listen to our heart. We can live the mission. So he was rephrasing my point, but the main thing that he added is the word at the same time, which is not just say using the mind at one point and listening to the heart at some other point, but you have to align what you say is based upon what you feel in your heart. So that's the alignment, the same as know thyself and thy will be done. The human mind and the way of nature, or the brain function, and what we can listen to our heart. So all these expressions that I found is very deep and insightful. And in the process of this research, I checked again Jordan Peterson talking about 12 rules for life, which I think had maybe 10 or 10 million views. And in there, he is pointing very similar. And one of the passionate expression he was sharing, and I was impressed, is that he goes deeper into the depth of the consciousness to figure out what can be done so that, in his word, the old unnecessary self dies and the reborn is the new self, which he corresponded to the story of the Christ dying for the sin of whatever the people, and there's rebirth. So it's a continuation of dying and reliving, rebirthing. And in Buddhist way, the same is expressed as the Sila Samadhi Panna. In that case, the story goes, the Sila is same as the right conduct. Samadhi is a calm and quiet mind, and Panna is the wisdom. So if we have the right conduct and have the calm, quiet mind, we can make a good judgment, find a good insight. But obviously, human being not perfect, we cannot do the right conduct. We may have a bad memory, bad impact, bad habitual pattern, and therefore, every now and then we do have to go through this suffering process that we want to clarify by finding the wisdom. So that idea of the Sila Samadhi Panna is to figure out the insight. We have to have a calm and quiet mind to resolve what the issues are, as if go down deep into a consciousness and find the wisdom. So there's that connection of those other points from the Proverb and Taoism, that there's a alignment that we want to accomplish, and whether you call it dying the old self and rebirth, or finding the wisdom from the suffering and learning the lesson, there's a commonality. And Jordan Peterson's point of view is, on occasion he had spent in one phrase of the idea for 3 months, 6 months, or whatever the case is. So it is like acceptance of what it is. Let go of what we think, feel, but let the way to take place, let the Lord to speak and give us a favor so that we have the basic principle addressed and figured out as insight or wisdom. And we find the way, the passage to live a life accordingly. So the basic point, one I think we should try to subscribe, is whatever we do individually may have such a scheme, way, that we can resolve whatever the passage you take with the Christ or the Buddha or Taoism or whatever the case may be, or from neuroscience point of view. I think Joe Dispenza was the person who was pointing the same, and he had another 10 million views, and not looking at from the spiritual point of view as much, but talking the same thing about the meditation and the power of calm and quiet mind from his way of looking at it, based upon neuroscience, scientific data, and so forth. And Jordan Peterson had the same attitude of not jumping into the conclusion, but deep search from his own experience to sort things out, to come up with the wisdom, as much as scientific discovery supporting such approach. And that's what I realized is happening in my recent research, and found it very interesting, as if to have a synthesis of various ideas, put in some better references in my mind so that I can accept the reality and live my life accordingly with wisdom, hopefully. So the point that I want to capture out of all of this discussion is live sincerely and truthfully and connect to the idea of the thy will be done, so that the negative thought and whatever we shouldn't carry will be left behind, because that's the learning, sort of like a PDCA process or Sila, Samadhi, Panna, that we keep finding the wisdom or compassion and find the way and move on.